continue to log in as I go.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar about education abroad or taking your students abroad for a period of time. And then we're going to talk about the variety of different options that you have available for your student and just general questions about what this whole experience can be like. My name is Merediths. I am the Director of Parent and Family Services here. I have brought in experts about what the education abroad experience can be like for our UAB students. So I have the Director of our Education Abroad program here, Dr. Brian Johnson. As well as Merediths, whose name I just messed up a little bit, but she is going to also, she's a student, so she's had a couple of different opportunities to study abroad, so she's going to be able to share her experiences as well. There's a few things that I want to share with you all before we get started, just to kind of give you how this will all work. First and foremost, the communication method that we'll be using for you to be able to ask questions. It's going to be through that chat, which is located on the very bottom of the little toolbar that comes up from the webinar go-to training. So at the very bottom of that chat function, if you'll just take your message in there, and we will be questioning questions towards the end of the presentation to make sure that we're providing all the information you need. A few things to know about the type of questions we want you to ask. Please be careful when you are asking questions that you're not identifying, writing identifiable information related to your student. Specifically, I don't mean their names, but the type of their blazer or anything else along those lines that could kind of impact their identity. The other part is if your student is actually in the process of applying for a study abroad opportunity, and you have questions about specific application and where it stands, the best option is to actually contact the Education Abroad office after this and to be able to get the specifics versus having that be the component of our presentation. I apologize about a few echo that we're getting right now. Let me make sure all things are ready. That should hopefully help, and we'll make sure we pay attention to that as well. If you do continue to have any issues or problems, please put it out there so that we can make sure that we fix it for you. But also before we get started, I want to make sure that we want to get some information from a few of you all so that we can best provide your information or best answer your questions relative to your specific where you stand on a lot of different things so that because there's some specific things that can kind of best provide us with information for everybody. So I'm going to ask we're going to run a few polls just to be able to provide you with the most up-to-date information. So if you could take a second and answer these questions as they come up, it would greatly help all of us. So to start off with, our first question is, has anyone in your family previously studied abroad? That can be yourself, a member of your family, another student that you previously had, or just know this would be a totally new experience for everyone here in your family. So we're going to give you just a couple of seconds to answer this. This way we know if we need to kind of where our baseline of where they need to kind of talk and share everything. I'll leave it open for another minute, a couple more seconds rather. Okay, I think we're getting pretty steady. So now we're going to go ahead and go to another quick question for you all. This again just helps us know how to best answer some of these things. Is your student studying as an in-state or an out-of-state student? Okay. And I guess I should clarify, is your student studying here at UAB as an in-state or an out-of-state student? Leave it open for just a second more. Beautiful. That was a little bit of an easier question. All right, moving on to the third one. What year is your student? Are they a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior? And again, this can be, I know some of you may have, let's also apply it to freshmen being this is their first year at the university, sophomore in their second, junior, third, or senior, fourth or fifth year, dependent, because I know we've had many of our first year freshman or first year students who would be qualified as a sophomore or above. But they would, from this perspective, we'd be looking at them as a freshman. All right. All right, so we're going to give you, oh, there we go. I think we got most everyone. So then here's our very last question. So this one's a little bit different than the others, and it's kind of a little, but we want to be able to specifically answer these questions. If your student, let us know if your student receives either a VA, Alabama Pact, or athletic scholarship. If your student receives a scholarship or financial aid that isn't one of those three, just select no. Those specific three have a unique or different perspective for everyone. And I see I will work on the sound again. I apologize. But again, this is specifically if you just receive one of those three because they have some kind of unique components to it.
Well,
all right, so I think we've got everything in. I'm still trying to work on our sound over here, so I apologize. Everyone should be muted at this point from our side of things. I apologize for the sound challenges that we're having. Hopefully, I think that should have fixed everything. So we're going to go ahead and
all callers. There's a function.
switch over, and I'm going to turn it over to our actual attendant, our actual presenters, so that they can kind of walk you through what it means to study abroad, what that experience looks like, and opportunities that are available to students in the variety of ways that those opportunities are. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Meredith and Brian.
All right. Thank you, Meredith, and thank you to everyone out there listening in on this webinar, and good morning to everyone, or good early afternoon if you're listening to us from the East Coast. Again, my name is Dr. Brian Johnson, and I'm the director of UAB's Office of Education.
Muted.
We are the office on campus that handles all the study abroad opportunities, which we will talk about today. And we are also the university's home for coordinating of student travel abroad on research activities, as well as student conference travel and student organization travel. We also are the home of a full-service U.S. State Department passport acceptance facility. So that's another way that we lower barriers to getting our students abroad. They can actually apply for their passports in our office rather than having to go on a hunt to find another facility to get their travel documents at. I'm going to let Meredith Schertzinger introduce herself, and she can tell you a little bit about her background.
Hello, everyone. Like I said, or Dr. Johnson said, my name is Meredith. I'm actually the face that you are looking at on your screen right now. I am a senior here at UAB. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I am studying psychology. And I went to Sydney, Australia. I went on an exchange, so I was there for the entire semester, which totaled in about 6 months for me. It was an absolute incredible opportunity. So I love to be able to be a peer counselor now because I'm able to work with your student and help them get abroad as well.
Meredith is one of our fantastic peer counselors. They are student returnees who have gone abroad on one of our many high-quality programs. They are back and they are working in our office, and they serve as the first point of contact for our prospective students when they get ready to start planning their abroad experience. So we'd like to start off today with the question, kind of the intro question here is, why study abroad? So why should your student think about going abroad? And I'm going to ask Meredith for her her opinion on that. So why should UAB students study abroad?
First off, because it's amazing, but it really truly is an experience of a lifetime. It does sound a little cliche, but honestly, having been abroad, it truly is. It's the best semester I have had in college by far, and potentially in my lifetime, who knows. But to be able to experience a whole new culture, for me, I did experience a slightly new culture, being a northerner coming into the South, but going all the way around the globe into a whole new culture is just an extremely incredible opportunity and something you might not be able to do following your undergraduate degree. You never know where you're going with work and things, but this is the perfect time to immerse yourself in a new culture, surrounding yourself with students, and taking new classes internationally, which is really incredible. All the classes that you do take, they go towards your degree, so you will not fall behind. You will only continue on in your undergraduate degree when you study abroad, and it's huge for your future career. You're exposed to so many different people. I actually was able to work in a research lab, so that's huge going on into my postgraduate degrees. So just so many incredible opportunities when you study abroad.
I see from the poll that 85% of all of you answered that you yourself had not studied abroad and you didn't have another one of your children study abroad. So just to give the real basic overview of what study abroad is this is the opportunity for UAB students to go abroad and to enroll in a foreign university, and of course we facilitate that transfer. So the students go abroad, they take classes at a foreign university. So whatever their typical course load would be here, the 12 to 18 credit hours, say for example, spring semester that Meredith would have been taking at UAB, she was taking at her host university in Australia. So those courses come back and they apply towards her UAB degree. She progresses just typically along towards graduation.
Muted.
Things about study abroad that we like to make sure that we emphasize is it's a great way to boost your future career. So we understand that there are a lot of different opportunities for different activities that students can engage in while they're outside of going to class. I mean, there are wonderful programs put on by Life and by the Rec Center and Greek Life. There's a lot of different things that students can get involved in, and students' time is quite valuable. We want to make sure that they know that study abroad is one of the most high impact co-curricular activities in which they can engage. And we have some data on our website up on the screen. We have some data up on the screen, and we have more data on our website that speaks to this point, that study abroad experience will make the student more competitive in the job market. Study abroad experience is one of those most highly impactful experiences on a resume that recruiters and hiring managers really look for. To put it simply, study abroad is one of those things that really helps to move your application, particularly job applications for entry-level positions, from the middle of the resume pile to the top of the resume pile. It's something that those recruiters really look for. On top of that, I should also mention that study abroad students actually are more likely to graduate on time than non-study abroad students. So study abroad to further your career, and study abroad to further your academic career while you're still in college. So next, we want to talk about some of the, if I can forward the screen here. Next, we want to talk about some of the
technology sometimes.
Yeah.
Let's try it this way. There we go.
Okay. So next up, let's talk about some of the myths about study abroad and the realities of this great experience. The first myth that we often encounter and we work very hard to dispel is that students saying, I can't study abroad because my major is too complicated. Well, the reality is that no major at UAB, no minor, no academic program, in none of those programs are students precluded from studying abroad. As long as the student plans ahead, then anyone at UAB can study abroad, and we have programs to service all of we have abroad programs to service all of our academic programs here at UAB. Meredith, did you want to talk a little bit about your the academic side of your study abroad experience?
Sure. So as I said, I am a psychology major. So I took one course in psychology, and I also have a sociology minor. So this is a great time to take advantage of fulfilling some of your minor requirements, especially for language. I studied abroad also actually in Puerto Rico for a summer to take some foreign language credit. So going abroad, obviously when learning a foreign language is incredible. So that's a great opportunity to do that as well. And I also did a research internship. So I worked in a psychology lab for the semester, working on different research within that lab, which was a huge opportunity for me and incredible, but also took planning. So like Dr. Johnson said, planning ahead is ideal. Being a peer counselor, meeting with freshmen, it's a great time just so we can walk you through the process and kind of help you figure out which courses will be great to take, and that gives you plenty of time to meet with your academic advisors and get it all worked out and laid out to keep you on track for graduation.
It's really not a question of can I study abroad with my major? It's how many different options do I have for study abroad given my particular major. And if your student comes to speak with us their freshman year or even the summer before freshman year begins, then basically the world is their oyster. I mean, we'll be able to tell them there are dozens and dozens of programs on which you can go. We offer right around 200 different programs in about 50 different countries. And with proper planning, many students are eligible to go on 100 of those various programs. We like to remind students that sophomore year is the best time to go abroad. The reason for that is that your freshman year, we want you here in Birmingham, we want you here on campus, we want you getting used to being in college and making that successful transition. Sophomore year is a great time to go because freshman year you can work through your options, you can go through the really fun research of picking out the ideal program for you. You have a lot of courses remaining in your academic career, so you have a lot of different options as far as academic requirements to fill. When we get into junior year, most students can still go abroad on a wide variety of programs junior year. The difficulty sometimes happens when we get into senior year, especially second semester senior year. Program options become more limited because you think about your student as much more close to graduation. So they might only have, 8 classes left, 9 classes left. And when they come to us and say, well, I only have these 4 classes left, and where can I go abroad? Our answer might be, well, you have 2 options. And we just don't want to disappoint anybody if they say, well, those 2 options aren't in the particular country I'm really interested in. So that's why we want students to go abroad sophomore year so they have more options. And then certainly when senior year, particularly second semester senior year, a lot of students are thinking about graduation and they're interviewing for jobs or they're busy applying for grad school. So that's why really that sophomore year is the best time to do one of our overseas experiences. Now, throughout the year, we have a wide variety of times that you can study abroad. And Meredith, when did you go abroad? Tell the listeners.
Yes. So I first studied abroad actually on a summer program to Puerto Rico. So that was a 3-week trip. And it was great. I had an awesome experience, but then I had to go abroad again because I realized how incredible the opportunity was. So I went spring of my junior year, which is definitely, we love to promote semester programs. Having been on both programs, I can tell you that allowing your student to go on a semester program is the way to go. Affordability-wise, semesters almost work out better anyway because of the way financial aids and scholarships work, and the level of classes you take, and you really get to immerse yourself. Going on the summer, it really kind of feels like a field trip. You stay with your group most of the time, but when you're on a semester program is really when you get to immerse yourself. I now have best friends from all over the world, which is so great because whenever I have a problem, someone is up. So it's beautiful. But you can go all year. My biggest regret, honestly, is that I didn't go an academic year. So if you have an eager student, let them go for the year because it will be the best experience of their life.
Yeah, and I'll say honestly, from my undergraduate experience, I loved it. I had a great time. I learned a tremendous amount, got a great education. The only regret that I have from undergrad is that I went for a semester abroad instead of going for a full academic year. When I got there, it wasn't more than a couple weeks in, a month in, where I was contacting back my my home campus saying, "Can I extend this? This is so great. It's just a great international experience, and I'm progressing towards graduation. What's not to like?" But my home campus said, "We're sorry, somebody else actually has your spot for the spring." So if your student is at all thinking about the academic year, that would be a great option to investigate. What we like to tell all of our students is to start by thinking about a semester, and if you can fit into your schedule an academic year, that's great. We also have some programs that run the calendar year. In some countries, they don't do a summer break like we do, so that will fit. If for some reason the student is not able to fit in a semester, then we do have summer programs that run the entire summer, programs that run a couple weeks in the summer and everything in between. Some of our shortest term programs go for about a week and a half, but again, those semester-long programs are the ones that we get the highest student satisfaction ratings. They're the ones that the students get the most impactful international experience as well. You need to think about the summer programs not necessarily as if that 6-month length sounds intimidating. You have to think about it. It's more like 16 or 17 weeks. And when you're abroad on that semester program, you'll spend the first couple of weeks getting acclimated to your new home. You'll spend a couple of months really in the swing of things, and you'll spend a couple of months being a local, and then before you know it, it'll be time to go home. So we want to give students adequate opportunity to really get immersed in that foreign culture. So our second myth that we want to address here is students who say, "Well, I can't study abroad unless I speak another language." So Meredith, I'll hand it back over to you.
That of course is so not true. We have plenty of options who do speak English with an incredible accent, but they do speak English. So being in Australia, they definitely say some different lingo phrases, but nothing that's not difficult to pick up. And if you do go somewhere where English is not the first language, such as Norway or Italy, you will take courses in English. We will not send you abroad to a country with classes that are not taught in English. That would just be way too complicated. And you also, when you go on those programs to another country with a foreign language, you also will take an introductory course to that language, which is really helpful. And so many people speak English that it's not overwhelming, or it shouldn't intimidate you to go to a country that does not speak English as its first language.
Yeah, so we want to let everybody out there know that the vast majority of our students, when they go abroad, they take their classes in English. And one of the ways that you can do that is you can, like Meredith, go to a country whose dominant language is English, like Australia. We also have very popular programs in places like Scotland, England, New Zealand. You can also go to a country with English language universities. So we send students to a university in Norway, where if you know anything about Norway, you know that the vast majority of the population speaks English as a second language, particularly university-age students. So they have universities there that have a wide variety of course offerings that are taught in English. Similar situation in a place like Italy. A lot of the Italian universities, they have students who are learning English as a second language. So the Italians themselves want to take, for example, a history class or an accounting class, and they want to take that class taught in English. So our students, commonly, they will go to Italy, and they don't speak any Italian at all. They hopefully will pick up some Italian while they're over there, but all their classes in Italy will be taught in English. Now, we certainly do have language-based programs. So all the foreign languages that are taught at UAB, we have great opportunities for students to work on their Spanish major, their French major, their German minor, their Mandarin minor, and all the languages we teach here at UAB, as well as a couple of the other languages that we don't offer here at UAB. If a student wanted to take additional courses in something like Arabic, study abroad is a great way to do that. So our most popular locations, this is a common question we get at our office and when we do outreach events. As you, maybe we should have asked this as like a poll question to get your guys' guesses. So our most popular location, our single most, as some of you might have guessed, is the United Kingdom. Our single most popular program is in England. We have a handful of popular programs in England, as well as some really, really great ones in Scotland. And actually, Merediths is planning to go to Scotland for her postgraduate career, so that's very exciting. Up there on our most popular location lists, we have a couple of other Western European locations like Italy, Spain, France, and Ireland. But we also have very popular programs in other parts of the world, like East Asia. We have popular China programs. We have Australia. We also have some popular programs in Japan. Just broadly speaking, we have programs in about 200 countries all over the world, all 7 continents. Yes, we do have a program in Antarctica. So we have just about something for everybody. So Meredith, I'm going to ask you to explain to everybody what are the types of classes that students can expect to take while they're abroad.
Sure. So for people the typical student who comes in thinking that their major is too complicated and that they're unable to go abroad, a great way for them to go abroad is by taking your core classes. So in order to graduate, you have that set of English classes, history classes, sociology type classes. Those are great to take abroad. Also taking your major and minor requirements. So being a psychology major, that is offered all over the world. So I was able to take some psychology courses. I did see something pop up about being in the Honors College. I actually am in the Honors College. I am a personalized pathway student, and the Honors College is really pro studying abroad. So they are able to work with you. So what I did is I took, like I said, I took a psychology course and I took 2 sociology courses, and I worked with the Honors College and, oh, sorry. Okay. I worked with the Honors College and I was able to receive honors credit for that. SciTech and UHP has some pretty set courses in not related to the core classes that you typically take, but they too are also really great about working with you and studying abroad because they do realize how incredible of an opportunity this is and beneficial it will be to your postgraduate careers. In that summer program I took language classes that also had a service learning component, so I was able to do some service work while I was abroad, which was really awesome. And I did get to do research, so I kind of hit all 5 of these while I was studying abroad. And that's me studying, so your student could be able to study in some of the most awesome locations and become very inspired. But yes, so many options and ways to go abroad and study while you're abroad.
Yeah, this is that Meredith brought back from Australia. That is her studying for one of her classes.
Yes, that's a sociology textbook.
Yeah. Wouldn't you love for your student to do that for a semester? That'd be great. But yeah, we get a lot of questions from students, and sometimes they ask, I am of a certain major, where can I go abroad on a program for that major? And the vast majority of our programs are broadly based programs. They offer classes in a wide variety of different academic subjects. And so if your student is, let's say I'll use myself as an example. As an undergrad, I was a secondary education major. And when I went abroad, I took a mixture of core classes, of my major requirements. And so let me think back. I took a sociology class because I was getting a teaching license for sociology. I took a geography class that was one of also my teaching licensure classes, and I took a history class and a poli-sci class. So those ticked off some of my major requirements, some of my minor requirements. I myself didn't take any electives while I was abroad, but those are certainly also options. So students have a lot of different options that are going abroad, and they're typically going to be checking a number of these boxes of the different types of classes that we have listed up here on the screen in front of you. Our next myth is that that unfortunate rumor that people think study abroad is too expensive and is unaffordable. So we want to dispel that one right here, right now. That no, studying abroad is affordable. And Meredith, I'm going to ask you to talk about this affordability aspect.
So I will admit I was under the spell of that myth, and I too felt that it was going to be extremely expensive to study abroad. But when you meet with us and here right now, we will let you know that it is incredibly affordable. So with the scholarships that I had, I was paying the same tuition as what I would be here at UAB. And room and board is very similar to when you go abroad. So if you really do the math and look back and forth at it, I was really spending relatively the same amount as if I was still here in Birmingham. So it is really affordable, and there are more scholarships available when you go on a semester. So I applied for several scholarships, which I was able to receive, which reduced my rate more and covered my plane ticket. So there are lots of ways to make studying abroad affordable, so that definitely should not be an issue.
We are certainly very aware of the affordability aspect, and we want to make sure that study abroad is available to students not only of all academic backgrounds, but from all kind of financial situations. And if you go to our website, the very first thing you'll see at the top center of the page is a link that will run a search for all of our programs that cost the same or less than attending UAB. So that means UAB tuition, room, and board versus tuition, room, and board on our overseas programs. If you click on that link, it'll bring up. It's actually it's a picture, but it's linked to this search. That you'll find a listing of over 40 programs that cost the same or less than what your student is already paying to go to UAB. And I see that of our listeners, 75% of you are in-state. So yes, that is the same or less than in-state tuition plus room and board at UAB. Now, on top of that, we also have scholarships that are issued by our office. So information about our scholarships is also on our website. We offer scholarships that roughly cover the cost of the plane ticket. And those scholarships, we have money to give. We're actually reviewing scholarship applications. It's on my to-do list for this afternoon for our spring scholars. So our office, the good thing is we do have funds to offer supplemental scholarships, which would be on top of anything that your student is already earning from UAB. That would be a supplement to their study abroad experience. And the great thing, speaking of scholarships, is that your college funding travels with you when you study abroad. And Meredith, can you kind of explain how that works in your scholarship situation?
Sure. So I have the academic scholarship that you receive for the ACT or however when you're applying for UAB. So that scholarship went with me, and I also am a former athlete. So I was a member of the soccer team. So I have a athletic scholarship, and that also went with me. So essentially, scholarship worldwide, it looked like I was still here at UAB. I received all my scholarships, and they just applied for me going abroad to another country. So it worked out really well, but I still received all the scholarships, no issue.
Yeah, so we get questions about how do I study, or how do I pay for study abroad? And the answer, quite simply, is it's the same way you're paying to go to UAB right now. So if you're paying to attend UAB this semester, fall 2017, if you're using financial aid, if you're using institutional scholarships, when you go abroad, you'll use financial aid, institutional scholarships, and then hopefully the cherry on top will be one of our education abroad scholarships that can help pay for your plane ticket on top of that. So you pay for study abroad the same way that you pay for UAB. I noticed that we have a question. It's a really great question. I'm glad somebody asked this. The question is, I'm a UAB employee and receive a tuition discount for my student. So the those UAB employees, it's called the Employee Assistance Program, and it's basically that parental discount. Does that apply to studying abroad? And the answer is yes on select programs. So we are able to apply that tuition discount to any program that's listed on our website that has the word exchange in it. So Meredith actually went on one of those programs. And if you go to our website, the exchange programs are listed near the top of the page. So Meredith's programs on our website is called UAB Exchange in Australia, Sydney. And so that program would be eligible for the employee discount. We have another exchange in Western Australia in Perth. We have an exchange in Spain. We have one in Japan. We have a couple in the UK. So for that employee discount, it must be used on exchanges. We asked at the start of the webinar, anybody out there who's receiving VA, PACT, so funds from the veterans, from the VA, or the Alabama PACT funds, those ones are much easier to use your scholarship funding if you go on an exchange, but you don't have to go on an exchange for those. Athletic scholarships, if your student is receiving an athletics scholarship, we're going to want you to go on an exchange. It's going to make your life so much easier. But if your student is receiving another kind of institutional scholarship, let's say like a presidential scholar, green and gold scholarship, if your student is receiving financial aid, like a loan, then those are widely available as far as portability to just about any of the programs that are listed on our website. So, Meredith, why don't you tell everybody how to get started?
Great. So, of course, hopefully after this webinar, you will be texting, calling your students, letting them know to check out our website. Our website is really easy to navigate. You are able to check out all the programs available, and if your student is overwhelmed, because there are over 200 programs, that happens, the next step is to make an appointment with a peer counselor. So that is myself, Meredith, and 4 other lovely peer counselors. We are in the office from 9 to 3:30, Monday through Fridays. They can schedule an appointment on our website, or they can just pop in. We love getting people popping in for questions. And we're actually located in the International House, which is right across from the new freshman residence hall. So perfect location for your student if they are a freshman. Also, too, another great thing, you need a passport to go abroad. And if your student does not have a passport, we have a passport office, way more convenient than the post office, for sure, so they can make an appointment to get their passport, as well as parents. So another advantage to your students studying abroad is that you can visit them, and we are able to get you a passport as well. So all great opportunities.
Yeah, and what we really want, ideally, we want your student to do is to come to UAB, to move in, to start going to classes freshman year, get settled, and then come see us at our Study Abroad Fair, which we do one in the fall and we do one in the spring. The one in the fall is in September, and at the fair they can meet everybody in our office. They can meet representatives from our foreign universities. If you don't want to wait for the fair, that's completely fine. Just visit our website and make an appointment with one of our peer counselors. Meredith is, as you can tell, is a specialist and expert in Australia. She can also talk about Puerto Rico and her study abroad experience in the Caribbean. She can talk about honors-related issues as well as service learning abroad, research abroad. We have other peer counselors who study abroad in Norway, Costa Rica, Dubai, Germany. Another one who studied abroad in Germany, Japan, Korea, UK. I can also talk about Australia. That's where I studied abroad. But anyway, we have experts that can help. And when you get into the application process, you will be assigned a education abroad advisor. So you'll have an academic advisor in your degree field where your student is majoring, and that advisor will carry through the entire college career. But pre and then during and post study abroad experience, you also have an academic advisor within our office who will help out with the nuts and bolts of selecting classes and getting those classes to apply to your UAB degree. We certainly welcome questions via email as well, and our email address is very easy. It's educationabroad@uab.edu. We welcome parent questions. Usually those get routed to me, but if it's an academic type question, if it's a financial type question, we can certainly set you up with the correct person to respond to your inquiry. What I think we want to do now is kind of wrap up our talk and then go to your questions. But I don't know, before we do, Meredith, did you have any final thoughts before we jump over to?
Sure. So to kind of leave you kind of as this picture, inspirational, looking out into hopefully your students' future studying abroad. This definitely was, I cannot emphasize enough how this was the best semester of my life thus far. I think a big thing going to college is really finding yourself, kind of figuring out what you want to do. Being from Ohio, I kind of did come down south to a place where it's about a 7 and 8 hour drive, so I really don't go home often. But when you are completely around the world, mom is not necessarily a phone call away. You really have to figure out things on your own, which is huge. And so exposing yourself to this completely unknown area really truly allows you to find yourself and grow and kind of really truly figure out where exactly you want to go and where you see your future. So I cannot recommend studying abroad more. Like Dr. Johnson said, I'm trying to do post-grad in the UK now, so I just can't get enough of it, and I hope that from this you're willing to inspire your student to go abroad so they too can fall in love with it.
Yeah, I second everything Meredith said. Definitely my study abroad semester was the best semester of my college life, and I did multiple degrees, so that's a number of years. I had a really great transformative experience in Australia. The classes that I took, the friends that I made that I still keep in touch with today, and even just like the simple things, like when I studied abroad, that's when I learned how to cook. That was the first time that I had to cook for myself, and I had great roommates who were very handy in the kitchen. It was the first time I really had to grocery shop for myself. So it really helped me become more independent. First time I'd really been away from home, as far away from home, and it was just a great experience all around. So let's turn it over to some of the questions that we received. We have...
Let's start. We've got a couple of different ones that are coming on about from related in and around housing, both here in UAB as well as studying abroad, housing options when we study abroad. So let's start with the first one. There's about an off-campus student currently lives in an off-campus apartment. Does UAB housing work with exchange students so that they can have a room on campus for a semester so that they're not having to basically have a financial commitment for over a year while their student is studying abroad?
Yeah, so if a student's going abroad on a semester-based program, the best thing to do, and I should say also add in the easiest thing to do, is to live excuse me, in UAB on-campus housing, and we will work with the residence halls here to let them know that your student is going to be needing a lease that covers the fall only, and then your student will be abroad in the spring on a supported UAB Education Abroad program, so that your student should be released from any financial obligation to pay in the spring. And the vice versa. So if your student is planning on going abroad in the fall, to say we will coordinate with UAB Housing to say that your student needs a space in the spring in one of our lovely residence halls when they come back, of which we have several new ones and even more are coming. So a little plug for UAB Housing there. And so that's not a problem. Our partners in UAB Housing, we work very closely with them, and they have students who are seeking roommates second semester, or students who make housing available. So that's completely fine. Yeah, go ahead.
So I personally live in an off-campus apartment. It's not as easy as living on campus. So definitely, if you're living on campus, that will make life a lot easier because with the apartment, unless you have something worked out with your apartment complex about maybe shortening the lease, you do unfortunately have to kind of figure out how to pay for that apartment while you're gone. I lucked out. I was able to sublease my apartment. There's a lot of great Facebook groups that your student can message or just corresponding with people to try to figure out how to make that work. But subleasing is kind of your best option if you're in an apartment situation that you're kind of tied down for the year.
There's another one on there about the VA, about address VA scholarships and how you go applying for that. There potentially is going to be an answer for about studying abroad and components, but if you haven't applied as a VA scholarship in general, you need to, as far as you think that you should be receiving VA benefits on campus, there is an entire office here specifically for our Veterans Affairs that works with both students who are veterans themselves as well as dependents upon veterans.
Yeah, and the way the VA scholarship, how that's germane to study abroad, is that if a student right now is receiving VA benefits to attend UAB, so they're a dependent of a veteran, or the student herself or himself is a veteran, is already receiving those VA benefits, then we can work with the student to make sure those scholarships funds can apply to their study abroad experience. We didn't mean to make it sound like there are additional VA scholarships just for study abroad. It's basically if your student is already receiving VA benefits right now, then let us know, because in the application process, we just need to make sure that those VA funds follow the student for their abroad experience.
Great. Here's another question about housing. If her student does not currently live on campus, when you were speaking about the scholarships and programs that the Study Abroad Office offers, does it cover room and board in that specific country? And/or are there any loan options if any scholarships she receives are not enough to cover the cost of the experience?
Mm-hmm. Right. So as far as the housing piece, as far as paying for housing, if your student is receiving scholarship funds for housing, we can generally make those scholarships work for your study abroad experience. If they're not, then, and they're paying for housing here out of pocket, then a similar situation would be in place for their study abroad. So paying out of pocket housing in Birmingham, you could expect in most cases to be paying out of pocket for housing while they're abroad. Our scholarships issued by the Office of Education Abroad generally are set up to be about the amount of the cost of the plane ticket. So we try to make that financially accessible for students for whom the barrier of a $1,000 plane ticket to Western Europe or to Latin America would be an issue. So our scholarships are in that amount to kind of cover that transportation there and back. As far as options for
Loans.
Yeah, loans. Yes, that is a possibility, and we do certainly work with the UAB Financial Aid Office for students to request additional financial aid to cover their study abroad experience. If you remember from going through the FAFSA and our UAB Financial Aid Office, they calculate the expected cost of attendance, and the expected cost of attendance is going to be, you can modify that to include the cost for the plane ticket, the cost for any additional things that you can think of that would be associated with the education abroad, and we will vouch for that. Those are mandatory costs without which you can't do this experience. So we certainly can help facilitate between your student and UAB Financial Aid to get loan amounts increased for the period that the study abroad experience occurs in.
So, and quick answer to the question, will this presentation be available on the website? Yes, it will be. It's going to take us about a week to get it posted, but we will repost this for everyone in case you want to share it with your student. Moving on, though, let's go ahead and go down. Here's a fun one. I think that can apply to a variety of ones. How do phone calls, Wi-Fi, etc. work? The student be able to communicate with home. I've heard things about getting a new SIM card once you get to the host country.
Sure. So I can kind of take that one. So yes, when you go to another country, you will pick up a SIM card. In Australia, it was so easy. Literally, the gas station sells SIM cards. So I pretty much hopped off the plane, picked up a SIM card, and put it in my phone. They have really easy plans that you just pay monthly. And the plan I actually had unlimited international calls and texts. So as long as I called my family did not get charged. We made that mistake once and had a $100 phone bill. So definitely work that out before they go. Do not try calling them if you do not know your international phone plan. But super easy. Everywhere you really have Wi-Fi, cafes, the McDonald's all around the world have Wi-Fi, so they can always pop into one of those. But yeah, so super easy. I never had a problem, except, for example, this picture. I did not have service. So you're not going to have service everywhere you go, but for the most part in the major cities, you'll have great service or at least Wi-Fi, so not a problem contacting home.
The fun part about this is Meredith from Parent and Family Services, and I also studied abroad quite a long time ago, but the fun part about all of this, especially for the families on this side, is that it's really fun for us to try to remember what the time difference is, especially time change happens at different times for different countries, so spring forward or fall backwards, and so I can't begin to tell you the number of times that I messed that up. And so that was actually the bigger communication issue, was that I would call my family accidentally at 2 or 3 in the morning, and my mother got really upset with me when I studied abroad. So that was the bigger communication issue versus how to call.
Meredith, where did you study abroad?
I went to Ireland.
Ireland, great. Yeah, when I was in Australia, I remember there was like this 2 or 3 hour window that my parents were awake and I was awake, and we always had to make sure our calls fit into that. But back in the bad old days when I studied abroad, we had to mess with like my parents bought me like this calling card that I had to use, and it was I don't know, it was like 14 cents a minute or something like that. So
I did the calling card as well.
You know, and I had to make sure I called from my home phone and not a pay phone because there'd be surcharges, and it was a mess. And now, like these days in 2017, when I go on site inspection visits and I use my Verizon cell phone, and it costs like barely any more to use that phone in Costa Rica or in England or in Scotland than it costs to use it here. So you do have to look into the best way to modify the phone plan. But it's super cheap. It's super easy to stay in touch. It's we live in just like an amazing age. It's just great.
So there was a question about the SIM card. So when you do receive your new SIM card, you will receive a new number. A lot of my friends still have Aussie Mayor saved in their phone. So you'll just have to get your student's new number. They'll text you because you'll have the same number. And it will be with a new company. So over in Australia, they have Optus and Vodafone, but super convenient. So with Optus, I had an app, and every month I would just pay $40 to the app, and that would keep me going. And it's great because you can end it right when you leave. So you're not committed to any sort of long-term. It's just a month-by-month phone plan. And also with Wi-Fi, they can contact you through Facebook. They can call you on Facebook now. They can FaceTime you on Facebook now. So they're like, I think I had 5 different apps of ways of contacting people, whether it's through Wi-Fi, texting-based, any sort of Snapchat, so many different platforms now that you can contact your student and they can reach out to you. Definitely staying in contact is not a problem.
Yes, we want to make sure you stay connected and engaged with your student. At the very least, if you can't go and visit them, that way you can kind of live vicariously through their experiences. All right, so a couple more questions about scholarships. I'm going to kind of combine these. Are all of the scholarships that are available through the study of education abroad office, are they need-based? For example, if you're not qualifying for need-based through FAFSA, is it worth applying for anything within the study abroad scholarships? And then the next one is, can you use your stipend for travel abroad?
So the Office of Education Abroad scholarships, let me think. One of them is entirely merit-based. The other 2 are a mixture of merit and need-based. If you don't qualify for need-based aid through through FAFSA, definitely apply anyway, because those basically on those scholarships, student applications, they get some bonus points in the rubric if they demonstrate need, but but let me think here. Last semester, we were able to award money to about a third, or 35–40% of all the students that submitted an eligible application. Eligible as in they met the GPA requirement, they were in good financial standing with the university, things that aren't based on need. So I definitely encourage students to apply, even if they're not receiving need-based aid, because we are able to give funds to those types of students. Did I address all of that?
Stipend.
Oh,
I used my stipend.
I'm not sure the particular stipend your student receives, but under my athletic scholarship, I do receive a monthly stipend, and that did continue. I used that to pay for, mine's just a monthly check that I received. So you can I applied that to my rent when I went abroad, as the same I would as if I was here. That check gets used for my rent. So yes, mine continued on. Not quite sure yours in particular, but mine worked.
Do you want to talk about housing options?
Oh, yes.
Do you want me to say what
Yeah, Meredith, do you want to read the question?
Yes, there's a question, and I apologize, I didn't mean to skip over it. There's one about what are the housing options available, room and board, what choices do they have, specifically for the student that is studying abroad in Argentina?
And I think for the purposes of this broader group, we should go over all the types of housing options available. So Meredith, tell us what type of housing you lived in, just for one example.
Sure. So for the semester abroad, I lived in a student housing. It was not on-campus housing, but your student will typically be in an on-campus housing situation. Mine was actually, though, really interesting. It was linked with 3 different universities in Sydney. So it was a housing situation for all those universities. So it was really cool because I met students from all over. But student housing is typically where your student will be. So very similar dorm setup to what we have here. I truly felt like I was living in Blazer Hall again, essentially, but abroad.
Now, did your housing accommodation have food?
Oh, good question. No, my housing did not have food, but I did have a kitchen, so I did a lot of cooking. But the on-campus situations that we do have set up on our exchanges do have meal plans and food options. So another person who went with me to Australia, they lived on campus and they did have a meal plan just like you would here at the Commons.
Yeah, so if you or your student is looking for student accommodation that is just like UAB, on campus, residence hall, with food, like a food court, we have that. Just to let you know that is largely an American thing, and it's not as common in a lot of other countries throughout the world. What is a lot more common as far as university-owned or university-affiliated housing are apartments that are self-catered, so they have a kitchen in the apartment, or there's a shared kitchen for the apartment complex that the residents use collectively. That is more semi-independent, and it might be on campus, owned by the university, or it might be adjacent to campus, owned by usually a nonprofit company that's a university kind of student-based housing provider. That actually is quite common in Japan, Australia, Germany, France, Western Europe. When I studied abroad, I actually lived in that type of model. So it was we cooked for ourselves. We had a private kitchen in our place, but it was an apartment complex that was owned by an affiliate of the university. We also have options for homestays. Homestays are big in places like, oh, did we just get a question about homestays? Yes, homestays. So homestays are big in Latin America, as well as in some of our other locations that are language-based programs, foreign language-based programs. Our students like the homestays because living with a local family, let's say, for example, in Costa Rica, is a great way to learn the local language. Typically, the homestay families, and I've actually visited a couple of homestay families. I do regular site inspection visits where I go to the universities and I meet with our students abroad. I meet with my counterparts at the universities. I meet with the housing providers. And typically the homestay families are maybe they're empty nesters, or maybe 2 out of the 3 of their kids are out of the house, off at college, or they're have moved out, they're adults, and they might have like one their daughter is still in high school, so they have a couple of empty bedrooms, and they want to host a foreign student, just like some people in the United States like to host foreign students when they come to the United States. It's a similar type of arrangement. Now, our university partners, so the host campuses, in this example, like Costa Rica, those host campuses typically work with the same homestay families for semester after semester, year after year. Those families are closely vetted as far as the families themselves and all the residents of the house, the family members, as well as for the safety of the building, making sure that the house is a safe domicile, and they almost always require those families to have high quality Wi-Fi so that your student can be able to communicate with you and email and FaceTime and do all those great things to stay in touch while they're abroad.
Well, it is officially 12:30, and I really want to be able to honor all of our times, including yours. So we're going to go ahead and conclude today's presentation. However, if you do have any additional questions or anything along those lines, please don't hesitate to contact Education Abroad. Their contact information is right on the screen currently. You can also contact families at UAB. It's families@uab.edu. I'm happy to help answer anything or get it over to Brian and Meredith if I can't answer the question for you. And then, but we are really grateful that you were able to participate in today's presentation. Again, we will be putting this back out on the family's website here. It will take us about a week to get it launched. But if you need to share this information on with your student, we can also share that with you as well. So thank you so very much, and a special thank you to Brian and Meredith for taking some time out of their day and coming and sharing this information with all of our families. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.